All right, this sample is a narrow hem along with a gather. So the pieces we need to cut are a 3-inch by 24-inch long piece. So it's this long, skinny piece like so. If you're somewhere in that ballpark, it's fine. You don't have to be exactly 24 inches. The gathers kind of have to do with what we're gathering. So lightweight fabric can gather up quite small, but heavier fabric you can't get as nice of a gather or as much of a gather. So if you need to, you can take one of your samples and just cut it into 3-inch pieces. You'll have to take 2 of them, and you can put your right sides together and stitch them if you need to create that long piece. But if some of you have some muslin left, or even if you have some scrap fabric, you can cut it into a 3-inch by 24-inch. That would be great, and just have one nice long piece. So the standard rule for a nice gather is typically 2.5 times to 3 times what it's going to be sewn into. So here is my garment. It's 8 inches by a 4-inch piece, and so I'm 8 inches wide. That means this 24 inches is 3 times the width of it. So it's going to gather up and become a ruffle attached to the bottom of that. All right, I will be heading to the sewing machine to do our first step, and we're going to be doing 2 parts. The first part will be the narrow hem. All right, this is the narrow hem that we're going to do first. So this is my long 3-inch by 24-inch piece of fabric. And the very first thing you're going to do is just kind of give yourself this perforated little line to fold on. So just guiding on 1/2 inch, I'm going to stitch, no back stitch. Just run a regular stitch right down here. For some reason my machine is really against going fast lately. Voila. Yeah, I don't know why my machine won't go fast. I put it in the fastest setting and it stops and beeps at me. Yeah, it's computerized machines. All right, so then I'm gonna head to the iron. And remember, this is like a little guideline, a little perforated line that you're just gonna press right along it, right there, so that the stitch is on the very bottom of where the fabric is. All right, so I'm going to pause and run over to the iron, and we'll do that. Hang on. Okay, so after we went over and pressed right on that fold, just like that. See how that's a nice little press right up there? Got it in there really good. And you want to press that down good and hard so that it's a solid press. Okay, so that becomes our first little fold that's going to encase this narrow hem. I saw this on pattern directions years and years ago, and I really liked how it worked. It was on kind of the prom dress, so you're using the satin, and it took such a nice press, but our muslin does too. All right, the next thing is to trim, and you're going to trim down to about a 1/16 of an inch. It is tiny. So just like so. And probably the hardest thing right now is to do this in front of a camera. It's in front of my face, which is where I'm trying to do it. So you might have to bear with me. I really don't want to unfold it. I want to just kind of do it with it folded. Maybe you can see that somewhat decently. And I'm opening my scissors up and trying to get one long, smooth cut so it's not real jaggedy. You know, sometimes they get kind of jaggedy looking, but try to keep it as one nice long smooth cut. All right, I'm going to continue cutting this and we'll come back. All right, I finished trimming all this fabric off of here, so now I'm left with just this little tiny fold, and definitely don't unfold it. Keep it folded all nice like that. All right, and then the next step, and do realize, you guys, I've seen directions to do this, like, I don't know, 10 different ways. This has been the most foolproof, best quality looking narrow hem, and the smallest narrow hem. There are directions that tell you just to try to press 1/8 of an inch or tuck under a 6 and whatever. I don't like any of those methods. This method has been very foolproof. All right, so if this is down to 1/8 of an inch, you can roll it over and it'll stay exactly the size you cut it. So if you cut it even smaller than that, you'll get almost a smaller hem. So I'm gonna kind of hold that first piece, and I rolled it over, and I'm going to start on the fabric a little ways because I don't want to lose that first little press, and do my back stitch. Okay, and it kind of wanted to eat it there, so I'm going to just be gentle with it and help it through that little area. And then all it is like fold it over. You can use your fingernail if you can and kind of tuck it, fold and hold it. And there's really no guideline. It's literally just shoot down the middle. It's so small that you're just trying to kind of hang out right in the middle area there. So fold it, tuck that in, and see how your stitch that you originally did, your first stitch is literally up on the top edge now. And tuck, and hold, stitch, and tuck, hold, stitch. Goes pretty quick. Super simple. Touching and holding. Try not to stretch it too. I'm kind of giving mine a little too much of a pull, I think. So remember when I think earlier in class, back before the coronavirus, and we were having class on the grounds, we were talking about the circumference of skirts and hems in particular. So if you have something that is, say, an A-line hem skirt or a real circular skirt, you think of that circle, if the circumference around it all the way around is, say, 36 inches, and you go to hem this thing, every little increment going up and hemming it is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller in circumference. So you can't do like a 1-inch hem because you wouldn't be able to fit the circumference into that smaller area. So by doing this narrow hem, you're using the least amount of fabric, and you usually can get it fit in there pretty good. Ooh, that was a horrible back stitch. Again, on the very edge like that, don't sweat it. I backed up. It kind of ate it, went sideways. No biggie. It did a knot. All right, go back to my beginning threads. So again, this is anything you do on like a flounce. Excuse me, lose my voice. Flounce, a circular skirt, anything that needs that narrow hem. And a lot of patterns will just say, do a narrow hem, and then they'll give you whatever their directions are. You can just apply this direction to it. All right, so that's what it looks like from the front side. Okay. And then from the wrong side is like so. First little stitch we did as a guide to press on. Really, that is so helpful. It just helps guide that perfectly. And then you're cutting. Take your time with your cutting. If that's done accurately, then this will be accurate. All right, love that. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next part of this, which is doing the gathers. Okay, now I'm still working on our long 3-inch by 24-inch piece that we just made our narrow hem. We're going to run gather stitches. The gather stitches are going to be at, we're going to do them on a 3/8 guideline and a 5/8 guideline. All right, so you're going to put your machine on basting, and you're going to go to the longest stitch that you have. So it's usually a stitch length 4 or 5. You find your 3/8 guideline. So there's my 5, 4, 3 is right there, basically the side of the presser foot. And then you're just going to run a base stitch, and you want this to be really clean. No weird little stops and extra little stitches. It's got to be nice, clean, long stitches. it to the end, stop, and then I'm going to leave my ends nice and long this time. So I'm going to cut them like that long. All right. That thread back underneath the presser foot there. Get it off to the back side. This is definitely one of those times you don't want your threads to knot up or kink up at the start. So make sure they're just kind of off into the back. Still knows with it. And then this time I'm going to go ahead and just guide on the 5/8 line. Again, lining that up. And different patterns might say different distances to do those base lines. You'll kind of find a way that you like best. So I am running still a different color on my bobbin thread just so you guys can keep track of where I am front and back. The back side is my turquoise, and usually what they tell you to do is grab the bobbin threads, so that means my back ones, which are my turquoise. So I'm going to grab those two threads ever so carefully, and you pull them. And as you pull them, pull gently. I mean, they are threads, they can break, so don't pull so hard you break them. But it gathers up like that. And then you just kind of scooch those threads towards the middle. Now we have a raw edge right here, and it'll start raveling, so don't rub on that too hard or you'll just start threading away and excuse unweave your fabric. See, this is what happens when you're trying to sew 10 samples in a day. Navigating a mic boom, a little camera that sometimes doesn't turn on, and I think I videoed something and it hasn't. It's been a J, let me tell you, people. And it's a beautiful day outside. I really want to be outside. All right, and then I'm gonna go to this side. So rather than taking all these gathers and sliding them all the way to this end, we go to about middle of the fabric and then pull from this direction. Now, if you're ever doing this, say on the bottom of a skirt or you know, just making a ruffle for something, you're gonna want to work from both directions. Be gentle with your fabric. Don't pull so hard, and you'll be going kind of in a giant circle. And you kind of distribute them like that. What was I going to say? Oh, if you pull so hard and you break one, you really have to kind of pull it all out and start again. You can't just re-stitch little sections and try to gather it. It just loses the total effect that you need with that. So you're going to play around with these gathers like so that you don't have blank spots. See how right there there's no gather and there's a bunch and then there's none. So I want you to distribute those gathers, and the pattern will say distribute and gathers evenly throughout the fabric, something to that effect. So I'm going to kind of look at these, see where I have some blank areas, see where I have some that are a little more gathers, and just kind of work them around like that. All right, and the next thing we're going to do is attach this to our fabric, and we got to kind of squeeze this down to 8 inches, and I'm still on the larger side of 8 inches, so I'm going to kind of play with this for a second and round up my other little piece that it's going to go into, because oh, I see it now, it fell on the floor. And I'm going to attach it to this guy. So there's my garment, and this is my ruffle that's going to attach right down here, and I've got to get it to fit, which hey, pretty close. Tends to be that the gathers stretch a little bit as you work with them, so you might want to pull it just a hair smaller than what you think is the 8 inches and work with that. Okay, so there's garment. This does have a right side and wrong side on the ruffle. Remember, we just got done putting a hem on it, so there is a right side and wrong side to that hem. So you got to make sure you put right sides together. And when you're actually doing this on a garment, it takes a while. Like, gathers aren't something that just whip in really quick. They it's a lot of maneuvering back and forth, and a lot of pinning and basting and so forth, as you will see here, because this is going to be a longer video.